everyone. Welcome to This Just In.
And It's Grim, a bi-weekly series where two friends of 3 decades chat about dark subjects.
Before we begin, you should be warned that our series contains language, themes, and material not suitable for children or sensitive Sallies.
So hide your babies and your boomers, and let's dig in. Why does that make
Did you
me...
hear?
Oh, go ahead.
Did you hear that? Like only millennials say cool beans.
Only who?
Millennials.
Is that...
Yeah, that's us.
That's us. Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of cool beans in and of itself.
Yeah.
We probably say a lot of dumb shit.
I wonder where that originated from. Cool beans.
Cool beans are cool. I don't know. It does remind me of I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Every time
Oh my god, the best movie ever.
It's really good.
Bean soda.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Get yourself a bean soda and listen to us yammer on.
Pull a chair up, crack open a cold, crisp bean soda. Yeah.
My wife makes the best bean pie in the entire county.
Oh my
Sorry,
God.
okay. Welcome back, guys. We're coming to you with a new season. It's pretty cool.
Yes, I think this might be my fave so far.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Definitely. Yeah.
And this season we're getting spooky. We're getting spooky. There's a paranormal or supernatural kind of underpinning, I think, to all of our subjects this season. Yeah. Oh.
Before we were doing like very, real, everyday type of stuff. And then now things that are so present in our lives and growing up and affected the way we grew up. Like, I mean, I remember my childhood just being shaped by all kinds of fears and tales, and just I bought into every fucking thing,
Yeah, I still kind of do, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Pretty gullible. But speaking of fallen for stuff, Amy, do you want to tell them what this episode is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode is on urban legends, and I'm so stoked about it. It's been a lot of fun researching, and can't wait to crack
Jump
it open.
on in. Well, let's go ahead and let Mima give y'all a quick warning. Shouldn't be too bad. And then whenever we get back, we'll get started.
All right, take it away, Mimo.
Beware, boils and ghouls. This episode mentions death, murder, suicide, infanticide, torture, sexual crimes, and ghosts.
Thanks, Mima. Before we start uncovering the stories behind the legends, we have to acknowledge that urban legends span different cultures, regions, eras, and varieties. If you aren't aware, an urban legend is a modern form of folklore made up of stories that are often fictional, humorous, horrific, or otherwise sensational, and passed off as truth. These tales are often allegorical, containing messages addressing anxieties, dangers, or prejudices of their time. Urban legends can be paranormal in nature, like Bloody Mary or La Chusa. They can reflect real-life fears, like the hook on the door handle or checking the back seat before getting into your car. Or be downright silly, like mixing Pop Rocks with soda causing your stomach to explode. Nevertheless, they circulate as warnings to people, and over time become so implanted in our psyche that you will inevitably meet someone in your life that knows someone that knew someone from their town that exploded from the deadly candy cola combo. And no matter how much these tales shift and evolve over time, and how most lack any real evidence of truth, they persist. Now, Amy is going to kick it off with an urban legend concept that is as old as human storytelling itself. A global legend that has infiltrated every culture across every era. From the Kukui in Latin America to Freddy Krueger on Elm Street. Of course, it's the boogeyman.
So let me ask you something, and before you answer, I want you to close your eyes for a second and think back to being a child. What was the thing, the nameless, shapeless thing that made you afraid to get up and go to the bathroom at 2 a.m.? The thing that made the dark seem alive. For most of us listening today, that thing had a name. That was the boogeyman. So Here is what is genuinely remarkable about that. Wherever you grew up on this planet, whatever language you learned to speak, whatever religion your family practiced, your culture, there was almost certainly a version of that monster, not just similar, nearly identical in function. A shadowy figure that punishes children for misbehaving, that lives in the dark places under the bed, in the closet, at the edge of the woods, and that adults have been invoking for as long as we have written records of human storytelling. The word itself is telling. In English, boogeyman traces back to Middle English word of buggy or boggy, meaning a frightening specter or scarecrow. It's related to Bogart, a household spirit from Northern English and Scottish folklore. It's cousin to bugbear, literally a bug-like demon who eats small children. The earliest documented reference to the boogeyman in English date to the 15th century, and that just is the written record. The creature, or rather the idea of the creature, is almost certainly much older. Because here's the thing. The boogeyman doesn't have a single origin. Every culture appears to have invented its own version independently, which tells us something profound about human psychology. We are a species that is, on a deep biological level, afraid of the dark, and we have always needed a way to communicate that fear to our children, to give it a shape, a name, and a set of rules. In Spain and Portugal, parents warn children about El Coco, sometimes called El Cuco or El Cucuy, across the Spanish-speaking world, and this one deserves its own deep dive because it has one of the richest and strangest histories of any boogeyman figure on Earth. The myth of El Cucuy originated in the Iberian Peninsula in northern Portugal and the region of Galicia in Spain. The earliest known written mention of El Coco appears in 17th century Spain. Francisco Goya immortalized the figure in a 1799 etching titled Que viene el Coco? Here comes the boogeyman, showing a cloaked, faceless figure looming over terrified children while their mother holds them towards it. A Spanish lullaby from the same period goes, "Sleep, my child, go to sleep now. El Coco is coming. We'll eat." Once El Cucuy traveled to Latin America, it merged with local indigenous beliefs and took on new forms. In Mexico, El Cucuy evolved into something more specific and arguably more terrifying. Social science professor Manuel Medrano at the University of Texas describes the Mexican El Cucuy as a small humanoid creature with glowing red eyes that hides in closets and under beds. He has large bat-like ears he uses to listen for misbehaving children, and a set of razor-sharp teeth described as resembling those of a barracuda. Some accounts give him a cape that makes him look like a shadow. He lurks in the mountains, using his enormous ears to hear children misbehaving across long distances, and descends to snatch them in the night. The USC Digital Folklore Archives contains first-hand accounts from Mexican Americans who grew up with this legend, describing El Cucuy as something that not only punishes bad behavior, but specifically targets children who disrespects their elders. Pointed cultural value embedded directly into the monster's mythology. Now let's stay in the Americas, but jump to New York. A specific borough, a specific abandoned institution, and a boogeyman legend so tightly rooted in the real place that eventually grew legs and became a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Cropsey. Cropsey is or was the boogeyman of Staten Island. The legend is believed to have originated at summer camps in the area sometime in the mid-20th century. The story told around campfires went roughly like this. There was a man, sometimes named George Cropsey, who had suffered from terrible tragedy, a fire, a family loss, prank gone catastrophically wrong, and had gone insane. He lived in the ruins of an old abandoned building or tunnel system near a local sanatorium, and he came for children. Sometimes he had an axe, sometimes he had a hook, and details shifted depending on the teller of the decade. But the core was always the same: a madman, a broken man, living in the ruins, waiting. What gives Cropsey a particular chill is what happens next. The legend existed for decades, and as exactly that a campfire story, a warning, the local flavor of stranger danger, but beginning in the early 1970s, real children on Staten Island began to disappear. The abandoned institution at the center of the legend was the Willowbrook State School, a government-run facility for children with intellectual disabilities. That the journalist Geraldo Rivera exposed to the public in 1972 investigative broadcast as a genuine house of horrors, overcrowded beyond capacity, rife with abuse, disease, and neglect. The school was shut down in 1987, and on its abandoned grounds, living in a makeshift campsite among the ruins, living in other words exactly as the legend described, was a man named Andre Rand. Rand, born Frank Rostam Rushin in 1944, had worked at Willowbrook in the late 1960s and as a custodian and a physical therapy aide. He had a prior conviction for the attempted sexual assault of a 9-year-old. He had taken a school bus full of children on an unauthorized trip to Newark Airport in 1983. And when 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger disappeared in 1987, searchers found her body buried in a shallow grave on the Willowbrook grounds, and it was the exact property where Rand was camping. Rand was convicted of kidnapping Jennifer Schweiger in 1988, sentenced to 25 years to life. In 2004, he was convicted of a second kidnapping of 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes, who had disappeared in 1981. He had also suspected in the disappearance of at least 4 other Staten Island children going back to 1972. Several cases remain unsolved, several bodies were never found, and who goes by the name the press gave him, the Pied Piper of Staten Island, remains in prison and will not be eligible for parole until 2037. 2009 documentary Cropsey, directed by Joshua Zeman and Barbara Brancaccio, both of whom grew up on Staten Island, hearing the legend, examined how the myth and the man became the legend. Roger Ebert gave the 3 stars and wrote, "Cropsey is a creepy documentary with all the elements of a horror film about a demented serial killer and an extra ingredient. This one's real. Cropsey is what happened when the boogeyman stops being a metaphor. But now I want to take you somewhere altogether different, somewhere that doesn't involve a monster lurking in the external dark. I want to take you to the moment you wake up and the dark is inside the room with you. Let's talk about the Hat Man. You've probably heard of sleep paralysis. It's a well-documented neurological phenomenon that occurs when you wake up before your brain has finished switching off the muscle atonia, the temporary paralysis that normally prevents you from physically acting out your dreams during REM sleep. The result is that you are conscious, aware of your surroundings, and completely unable to move. It typically lasts only seconds to a few minutes, but those seconds are some of the most terrifying any human being can experience because sleep paralysis almost always comes with hallucinations, specifically a presence, something in the room, something watching. The earliest clinical account of sleep paralysis dates back to 1664, when a Dutch physician described it as incubus afflicting one of his patients. The English word nightmare itself comes from the Old Norse word Mara, a female supernatural being that sat on sleepers' chests and suffocated them. In the early modern period, when the witch trials dominated European cultural consciousness, people experiencing sleep paralysis hallucinations reported seeing witches on their chests. In Victorian England, as ghost stories proliferated in popular culture, the hallucinations shifted towards spirits and skeletal figures. The brain, neuroscientists now understand, uses available cultural imagery to populate these experiences. Whatever your culture fears most tends to appear. In the modern era, and here is where it gets genuinely strange, the hallucinations have converged. Reports from dozen countries from people with no shared cultural background describe the same figure with unsettling consistency. A tall, dark, featureless humanoid wearing a wide-brimmed hat, or sometimes a top hat, or like a brimmed hat. So sometimes a long dark coat, no discernible face, no eyes, often standing in the doorway or the corner of the room, motionless, watching. The reports of the Hat Man began surfacing with regularity on internet forums in the late 2000s and have grown dramatically since. A citizen research project called the Hat Man Project has collected over 10,000 documented accounts from more than 50 countries. The descriptions are frankly unnerving in the consistency. The figure is described as darker than the surrounding darkness. It doesn't move, it doesn't make sound, it simply stands and observes with a specific quality of menace, and witnesses consistently describe as unlike any other fear they have experienced. Many report the encounter leaves lasting sleep disturbances, anxiety, and a persistent inability to enter certain rooms alone at night. Neuroscientist Balan Jalai at Harvard Psychology Department has studied sleep paralysis hallucinations extensively and noted that the brain's threat detection system, when malfunctioning during sleep paralysis, reliably generates the perception of human-shaped prisons. Hats, Jalal had observed, are a strong cognitive shorthand for authority and a threat shape immediately processed by the brain as indicating a specific intentional entity. Some research have even pointed to, like Freddy Krueger, A Nightmare from Elm Street, the original hat-wearing dream predator, as a possible cultural anchor for the Hatman's specific silhouette, noting that the film was itself inspired by the real accounts of sleep paralysis. A feedback loop between folklore, film, and neurology, each feeding the other. But here's the detail that kept researchers genuinely puzzled. The Hat Man is reported by people who have never seen the film, by people in rural Thailand, by people in indigenous communities in South America, by elderly people with no internet access, by very young children who have no framework to have constructed the figure culturally. The consistency of the description across populations who have not have shared the imagery is what separates the Hat Man from a simple internet meme. In Islamic tradition, the jinn, and it's an invisible being described in the Quran as created from smokeless fire, has long been associated with sleep paralysis as well. In indigenous South Africa belief, it is Toko Loshe, a dwarf-like water spirit that causes the crushing paralysis. In Turkey, the Karabasan spirit-like creature is the culprit. In Newfoundland folklore, it is the old hag. In Japan, it is Kana Shibari, which translates roughly to bound in metal. The idea is the same, that entity differs. The Hat Man simply may be the 21st century version of what all of these traditions were describing, the universal recurring experience of waking up paralyzed with something watching from the dark. Whether the Hat Man is neurological hallucination, cross-cultural projection of the brain's threat detection architecture, a genuine paranormal entity, or some genuinely strange middle option that science has not yet developed adequate language for, he is the most consistently reported figure in contemporary paranormal existence. Wow, that was a lot. Let's take a quick... Hey listeners, if you live in Colorado and haven't added functional fungi to your wellness routine, you might be missing that key ingredient.
That's right. Studies show that mushrooms can have a variety of benefits, and the folks over at Activated Brands have done the science for us.
Located in Arvada, Colorado, Activated uses the latest in extraction technology to create high-quality mushroom products like gummies and elixirs.
So you get the benefit in convenient and tasty ways, like sour melon or strawberry horchata gummies, and the apple mint elixir.
And not just products, Activated Brands host workshops, offer a community workspace to local growers, and have all of supplies, information, and advice available if you want to grow for yourself.
And that's why you can trust a company like Activated Brands. They are always willing to share their expertise. But don't take our word for it. Go see for yourself. The lab is open.
For more information like hours and location, or to order products, you can visit activatedbrands.com or check them out on Instagram.
Now back to the show.
All right, guys. So we're back, and I'm continuing on with another creepy thing. So
Creepy.
creepy thing.
That
So
was good. Can we chat about that for a second? Like,
absolutely, because I
that
know that
was
you have had that.
I have
And
sleep
I don't know if
paralysis, yeah.
it's something, I don't know if that's something that you still deal with
Not
or
anymore.
think.
And no, it quit a few years ago, and I think I've even told you exactly what I think is helping with that. You know, but I'm not going to say it on the air, but like it's something that I genuinely believed when it first sprung up in my early mid 20s. I believed that I had some kind of entity that had followed me from my youth, because I had remembered, and remember when we were teenagers, I told you stories about him and what I had seen.
Yeah.
And now I have a more of an understanding psychologically and neurologically of what that is. And
Yeah.
I was remembering the image, but misremembering the paralysis piece. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah.
So I know that I was having sleep paralysis as a child. I was only remembering that image. So it was hard to kind of connect it to a sleep disorder, you know? Yeah, so I just found it very interesting. You did like a really good dive into it and like exactly what it is like that connects the brain and what it means to go through sleep paralysis, which is that delay when it's crossing over from REM. So like it's just really neat the way that you pulled all that up, and I was just really impressed. That's what I want to tell you.
Thanks. So another thing that we're going to be going over, and it's like there's the so it's on Stranger Danger, and so when we're talking about stranger danger in this context, we'll be going tales that you have grown up on that are eliciting that fear, because that's kind of like what we're going into, like these tales that have kind of grown throughout cultures and throughout time that people share with their children to invoke that fear in them. Because I mean, even still to this day, like there's kids that are just going to go off with anybody at any time because they don't fucking know any better.
And if they're young, if they're 5 or 6, and you can use a fantasy entity to scare them from that, and you can't, I feel like what it is really is like there's a certain age of children that they're too young for you to be completely truthful with them. But you have to like find another way to scare them that's just as heavy.
Yeah, and on the same note of that, the whole stranger danger thing ended up kind of dissipating because it's more proven fact that children are harmed by people who are close to them.
Yeah.
More often than complete strangers.
It's such a low number.
Absolutely. And
you know it is because you hear about it. Like it makes headlines when it happens. As opposed to what the real number is, like when like of child trafficking or child abuse or whatever. The real number, the real high number is coming out of known places, not stranger danger.
Yeah. Absolutely. So one thing, why do some lies spread faster than truth? So why does a rumor about someone putting a razor blade in a child's Halloween candy spread across an entire country in a matter of weeks, while the fact that it almost certainly didn't happen takes decades to get any traction at all? Because fear doesn't need to be verified. Fear just needs to feel possible. Today we're talking about some of the most sticky, most resilient, most behaviorally consequential urban legends in American history, stories built around the idea that strangers want to hurt you, your children, and your family. Stories that changed laws, stories that shaped entire generations, relationships to the dark, to the road, to the telephone, to Halloween candy, stories that were in almost every measurable way false. Let's start with the holiday that has been waged as a battleground of parental anxiety over 60 years. So, razors and Halloween candy. Every October, you still hear some version of it. Don't eat anything homemade. Don't eat anything unwrapped. Watch out for apples. Inspect everything before you let your kids touch it. The threat a stranger somewhere in your neighborhood has put razors or a needle or poison inside a piece of Halloween candy and handed it to your child with a smile. The legend in it is modern form traces back to a letter to the editor published in the New York Times in 1970. A woman raised the idea as a hypothetical, with no incident behind it, that someone could put a razor blade in Halloween apples. It was speculation as an anxious thought experiment, but in social climate of the early 1970s, when American cities were experiencing rising crime, urban decay, and profound erosion of trust between neighbors. The hypothetical ignited like a match thrown to dry grass. By 1960, Razor Blade and the Apple story had already been circulating in parts of the northeastern United States and Canada. The New York Times reported 13 cases of tainted apples from isolated communities in New Jersey, with several quotations, more in Ottawa and Toronto. The New Jersey state legislature, responding to public outrage, passed a law mandating prison terms for anyone caught booby-trapping Halloween apples. And then 13 more razor blade apples turned up in 5 New Jersey counties the following Halloween. Anyway, so here's the problem.
Jersey, right? Like, you can't. Jersey is the Wild West of our. I don't know. Like, Jersey is just Jersey, man. Okay, sorry.
I have no desire to go ever. Yeah. So here's the problem. Folklorist and sociologist Joel Best, who has spent decades studying legend and is the author of The Razor Blade and the Apple, The Social Construction of Urban Legends, examined detailed follow-ups on virtually all of these cases conducted in 1972 and 1982. His conclusion, more than 75% of reported cases involved no injury whatsoever. And in case after case where detailed accounts were available, the child was the immediate source of the apple, meaning in most instances, the children were putting the razors in themselves and then presenting the apple to the parents, propagating the legend as they heard. The studies concluded that virtually all the reports were hoaxes. In the 5 decades since, Best has combed through newspapers nationwide looking for confirmed cases of a child killed or seriously injured by a stranger tampering with Halloween candy. He has found exactly 0. There's one confirmed child death in that period connected to Halloween candy, a boy named Timothy O'Brien, and he died on Halloween 1974 after eating a pixie stick laced with cyanide. His father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, had poisoned it to collect his life insurance policy. O'Brien was convicted and executed in 1984. The stranger danger legend was used by a parent to cover up a murder. The candy tampering mythology peaked in hysteria during 1982 in the wake of the Chicago Tylenol murders, in which someone had laced store-bought Tylenol capsules with cyanide, killing 7 people. The connection between commercially available products and random poisoning suddenly felt devastatingly plausible to millions of Americans. An ABC News and Washington Post poll taken in 1985 found that 60% of parents feared their children would be harmed by tampered Halloween candy. I mean, I still honestly fear it to this day, and I do. I check it every single time.
There's never been an account of it happening, though, from what from what your research has told.
Yeah, and also, like, I do, like, have to check it, and, all the Twizzlers, man, they're bad. They, every single one of them, I'm sorry, I gotta take them,
If I had littles, Reese's, they would never even see a Reese's. Like, they'd be like, what? There's this crazy candy that advertises like every Halloween and like every Easter and all this stuff, but we've never seen one. Like, nobody ever gives them to us. I'd be like, man, nah. Reese's is my jam all day.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So the real villain hiding in this story isn't a neighbor with a razor blade. It's the sociology of moral panic and the way a community under genuine social stress will generate a specific nameable and externally located threat to express fears that are much harder to name. The poison candy legend emerged in a decade of racial integration, urban upheaval, and eroding trust in neighbors. As Wikipedia's analysis of the legend puts it, these stories caught the public imagination in a way that accurate stories about abusive parents, judgmental neighbors, carelessly stored chemicals would not, because those stories hit too close to home. The stranger with the razor blade is a cleaner villain, and to this day, every October, police departments across America issue annual warnings urging parents to inspect their children's candy for a threat that Joel Best, after 30 plus years of research, cannot find a single confirmed instance of. The next topic is on a story that straight up fucked me up as a kid: The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. It starts to
Have you
simply
checked the children?
Oh my God, honestly. And I think it was, I can't remember who first, told it to me. I'm pretty sure it was my cousin. As, older cousins always will scare the absolute dog shit
Yeah.
out of the little ones.
Oh, I know. I was the older cousin. Ask Bubbles. She'll tell you, oh my God, she's always reading out of that scary stories to tell in the dark or whatever. I
So
was
good.
like,
Yeah.
come on, children, gather round. I have a tale to tell you. And I would do voices. I would make sure it was dark and all we had was flashlights. Oh yeah, of course. I was into it.
Amazing. Yeah, so it starts simply enough. A teenage girl is babysitting at a house, and she doesn't know that well. The children have just been put to bed upstairs. She's downstairs watching television when the phone rings. The voice on the other end is low, male, and strange. Have you checked the children? She hangs up. It rings again. Have you checked the children? She hangs up. She calls the police. They tell her, if it happens again, keep him talking. We'll trace the call. He calls again. She does that. She does what they say. The police call back. Their voices are urgent. Get out of the house. Get out right now. Why? She asks. Why do I need to leave? Because the calls are coming from inside the house. This legend, known formally as The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, first appeared documented urban legend collections in the early 60s, making it one of the oldest distinct modern American horror legends. It likely has roots in the real and deeply disturbing unsolved crime from March 1950. In Columbia, Missouri, a 13-year-old girl named Janet Chrisman was babysitting for the Romack family, and when she was sexually assaulted and strangled to death with an electrical cord at 10:35 p.m., the local police department received a call from a screaming girl, "Come quick," before the line went dead. Technology at the time couldn't trace it. Gregory Romack, the child she was watching, was found asleep upstairs, unharmed. Janet's killer was never identified. Her case remains officially unsolved. There is no confirmed evidence that the killer in Janet Chrisman's case called the Romack home that night from inside or outside the house, but the details, the phone call to the police, the child asleep upstairs, the darkness, the isolation, mapped almost perfectly into the structure of the legend and began circulating later that year. So the babysitter legend has a very particular psychological texture. Snopes' analysis notes that it speaks directly to anxieties of adolescent girl left in charge of children in a home she is not the mistress of and responsible for small lives while simultaneously being vulnerable herself. She is tasked with something adult, protecting the children while remaining a child herself, and her failure is complete. She is absorbed in the television, the teenage tool of passivity, while something terrible happens upstairs. The phone, normally a girl's instrument of connection and social life, becomes the instrument of her terror. Alvin Schwartz included a version of the story in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark in 1981, cementing it in the childhood experience of generations of American kids. The 1979 film When a Stranger Calls used it as the basis for what is widely considered one of the most effective openings in horror cinema history. The 1974 film Black Christmas had used the same concept 5 years earlier. The legend has essentially never left popular culture since the 1960s. It resurfaces in every decade, clothed in technology, anxieties of the moment, what is fundamentally communicates and why it persists in a specific and ancient fear that the danger is not true out there at a distance where you can see it coming. It's already inside the house. It's already with you. The stranger you feared was already in the room. The next topic is on a rather unwarranted fear that I make sure to pass on to my children. What?
Sorry, one question. I hate to keep
Yeah.
interrupting, but do you think, okay, so we had the calls coming from inside the house, but if we think about it, who has home telephones anymore, right? So, do you think that frogging could be the killers coming from inside the house? Like, because of maybe the lack of the home phone system has kind
Yeah.
of pushed their living in the attic. I mean, I know that does happen, but maybe it's pushed it a little bit more than it actually does happen, and it's becoming
Yeah.
more of a fear in place of that story, because I would imagine over time that story is going to die out because nobody uses home phones anymore. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something to think about. I don't know. Just a random thought. I'm sorry to cut you off for my random thoughts.
No,
but
it's fine. It's fine. So this one, like I said, is something that because I have a kid that I am teaching to drive, like I have told them this. I'm like, if somebody flashes their lights at you, just don't do anything. Don't flash your lights at them. Don't do anything. Just drive. Just ignore them. Sometimes it means like, hey, there's a cop up ahead. Sometimes it means like your lights aren't on. These are possibilities. Check and make sure your lights are on, etc. But, don't. If you see somebody driving without their lights on, just let them go, just in case.
I get it. I get it.
So,
I know what
yeah,
you're about to talk about.
Yeah, so this isn't really a campfire story. It's more like a moral panic that spread in real time across the United States through fax machines, email chains, and may have actually gotten people killed. The basic story, wherein your city gang members are driving with the headlights off, if you flash your high beams to alert them, the decent, neighborly, helpful thing to do, you become their target. A prospective gang member must kill the first person who flashes. It's the initiation. Don't flash your lights. Pass this with warning to everyone you know. According to Snopes, anecdotal reports of this legend go back to the early 80s when the story circulated in Montana, originally involving the Hells Angel bike gang. In 1984, it had traveled to Eugene, Oregon, and shifted as villain. Now it was Black and Hispanic street gangs in Los Angeles targeting white people. The racial targeting of the legend's villain is not incidental. It is, according to folklore scholars, central to why it spread so aggressively as it did in specific communities it traveled through. The legend's first major documented outbreak came in August 1993. And it spread explosively across the United States via fax machine. Within weeks, a second wave of faxes went out announcing Blood Initiation Weekend, scheduled for September 26, 1993. Police departments across multiple states were flooded with calls. The legend claimed to be from DARE officers, the Drug Abuse Resistant Education Program that operated in schools. DARE disputed this entirely. Its chief operating officer, Richard Mahan, stated that neither he or his regional directors nor any of the vice presidents, all retired law enforcement, had ever heard of a DARE officer issuing a warning. The fax-borne panic continued regardless. In 2004, a Canadian police officer in Thunder Bay, Ontario, forwarded a version of the lights out warning to a colleague. It escaped into general circulation with his name and signature on it, making it appear to be on official Ontario provincial police advisory. He was forced to put a message on his voicemail explicitly stating the warning was completely false and inaccurate and should not be passed on. He was not the last officer to have his name attached to the legend without his knowledge. Here's where it gets genuinely dark. In 1992, before the 1993 fax wave, but after the legend had been circulating, a woman named Kelly Freed was murdered in Stockton, California. She had flashed her headlights at a car driving without lights on. The occupants of that car, apparently taking it as a sign of disrespect, shot her. They were not conducting a gang initiation. There was no ritual, but the incident gave the legend a veneer of reality and helped it survive every subsequent debunking. Because the legend feeds on something real, the knowledge the road rage exists, that confrontations can escalate to violence, that 1990s in American cities were a time of genuine violent crime. All of those things were true. The specific ritual, not the police department in the country in over 30 years of the legend circulating has documented a confirmed gang initiation killed triggered by a high beam flash. But the warnings keep coming. In 2020, it resurfaced on Facebook and Instagram, now attributed to Chubb Electronic Security, a company based in South Africa, and once again falsely linked to dare. An entirely new generation received it as a genuine police advisory. An entire new generation checked whether they were allowed to flash their lights. This next topic is the reason why I still do to this day. Always check my back seat before getting into my car. So it's late. A woman is driving home alone on a highway on a dark stretch of road. She notices a car behind her following her, but not quite passing. Then the driver behind her flashes the high beams. She speeds up. The car keeps following. The high beam flashes again. She's terrified. That is it. That's the moment she always feared about being a woman alone at night on the road. She races home. The car follows her all the way into the driveway. The driver gets out and she bolts to her door and screams at the car, "Call the police! There's a man with a knife in your back seat. I've been flashing my lights every time he sat up to attack you." The killer in the backseat was already there. He was already with her before the danger she was racing away from even appeared. And the thing she was most afraid of, the car following her in the dark, was trying to save her life. Folklorist Carlos Drake first documented this legend in 1968 in texts collected by Indiana University students, making it one of the earliest formally cataloged American urban legends. It likely predates that first documentation by years. It gained broad cultural traction when it appeared in a Vice column by Ann Landers in 1982. Presented as friend of a friend account, Alvin Schwartz included it in his Scary Stories to Tell the Dark years before. The 1998 film Urban Legends opens with a version of it. John Carpenter's Halloween, 1978, uses the killer hiding in the car setup as the kill scene. It's been in American horror consciousness for over 50 years without ever meaningfully weakening. On Real World, Incident is often cited as the legend's possible inspiration. In 1964, in New York City, an escaped murderer hid in the backseat of a car. The car happened to belong to a police detective who shot him. The details are almost completely unlike the legend. No lone
Shot him.
woman.
That was it.
Huh?
You
Huh?
shot him. That's it.
I know. I was like,
In the
fuck it,
store.
right?
Okay, that's great.
I mean, that, yeah.
Protect and serve, sir. Protect and serve.
Health,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So there's no lone woman, no dark highway, no flashing high beams, no rescue, but the central fact that somebody was hiding in the backseat was real. The legend has been dissected for its gender dynamics, and the analysis is not flattering. The victim was always female, menace always male, savior also always male. The woman driving alone has made herself vulnerable by doing something perfectly reasonable, getting in her car and going somewhere and saved from a threat she didn't know about by a man who understands the threat she couldn't perceive. As Snopes puts it, the legend is sexist to the core. The woman is frightened of the wrong man, trusts neither her own instincts nor the helpful stranger, and requires male intervention to survive. Every telling reinforces the message women alone at night are in danger, and they are not equipped to navigate alone. And yet, legend persists, carried by the very real fear of assault that women experience as a genuine statistic reality. The specific scenario of a killer hiding in the backseat, waiting, is nearly non-existent in documented crime. The broader fear of being a woman alone in a car at night in a world where violence against women is real and not legend at all. What ties all of these stories together is something that sociologist Joel Best identified in his research. The urban legend about stranger danger works best when it almost touches something real. The child who finds the razor didn't put it there except when they did. The babysitter who gets the call is not safe because she's in someone else's house. And that much is true, just not in the way the legend says. The man following you with flashing high beams might mean to harm you, except when he's trying to warn you. The killer in the backseat might be there right now. The legends are not random. They're exquisitely calibrated to exploit a gap between what's statistically true and what feels possible. They locate in threat in the wrong place in stranger and the dark car, the neighbor's candy. In doing so, they distract from where the real threats more often live, in the home, in the family, in the familiar. The stranger with the razor was mostly a myth. The father with the pixie stick was real. That is, the detail of these legends were always designed to make you forget. So yeah.
Well, thanks, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, take a drink after that one. That was a lot. Well, I'm about to start a lot too. So, over the years, the paranormal has played a significant role in urban legends. Bloody Mary, Ya Llorona, school buses of ghost children dying on railroad tracks, Wendigos and skinwalkers, cursed dolls, and the list goes on and on. As a side note, I would love to ramble on about cryptids, but they will likely be getting their own episode or more in the future. So don't be upset if this episode lacks in mentioning those dudes. We will visit them at a later date. Bigfoot and Mothman aside, we still have plenty of supernatural contenders. And of course, ladies first. You go into the bathroom, stare into the mirror, and say her name. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. You turn off the lights, and a woman appears behind you, soaked in blood. The last thing you see before your demise. So, Amy, when did you first hear about Bloody Mary, and what was the version that you heard?
So I was probably about 10 years old, and the version that I heard was like we, be at a slumber party, and all the girls would go into the bathroom, turn the lights off. We'd say Bloody Mary, and I don't remember how many times, like 5 times, 6 times, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then something was supposed to appear, but we never made it that long. Like, we would just fucking start screaming
Sure.
and run out. So who knows? It could have actually, could have happened.
Right.
I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
But basically, she was going to come and kill us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I heard.
That's what you heard, right? So I also heard something similar. Definitely, she was showing up to hurt us. You had to turn off the light. You had to say her name a number of times. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And I think that there was something to do with sometimes putting water on the mirror, or lighting like a candle, or lighting a match or a lighter while you say it, or whatever. So this is just to kind of showcase that, like, there are variations of the story, but they all kind of are the same. Okay, so the legend of Bloody Mary is a global phenomenon, but its roots are a messy medley of ancient ritual, Victorian superstition, and psychological tricks. To understand how she ended up in our bathrooms, we have to look back thousands of years. Long before the 1960s, when the name Bloody Mary first surged in America, humans were practicing catoptromancy, or scrying, dating back to ancient Greece. This form of divination uses mirrors to seek answers. By reciting incantations or simply gazing into the glass, users hope to see the future or receive omens. While some saw it as a tool for clarity, others viewed it as a dark art used by witches to summon demons. Between the late 1800s and the end of World War I, the mirror ritual took on a romantic, albeit eerie tone. Young women would walk backward up the stairs of a dark house, holding a candle and a mirror. The goal? To catch a glimpse of their future husband's face. However, there was a grim catch. They saw a skull instead. It meant they would die before they ever had the chance to marry. This era also saw a boom in Halloween postcards. These often depicted young women wishing for a husband, while a witch's shadow loomed on the wall or a skull stared back from the glass. In England, ghost mirrors were produced to make apparitions appear, while in Australia, traveling shows claimed their mirrors allowed audiences to communicate with the dead. Eventually, skepticism grew as the tricks behind the illusions were exposed. Despite the skepticism, historical records show that mirrors have genuinely terrified people to death. A man named Michael Ostropshot was reportedly frightened to death by a beveled mirror. Because of the way it was hung, it created a double image, a shadowy, misty version of himself. Convinced he had seen his own ghost, he predicted his death and died shortly after, 1921 in Mississippi. In Livonia, Georgia, 3 men claimed they saw the face of a long-dead man in a 30-year-old mirror. The claim became so famous that daily pilgrimages were made to the home of John Cook just to test the claim. But who is the woman behind the name? Most researchers point to two primary candidates. Queen Mary Tudor, known as Bloody Mary, for her 5-year reign in England, during which she ordered nearly 300 Protestants to be burned at the stake. While her moniker fits, there is actually no historical evidence linking her to mirrors or the specific ritual of the legend. And then you've got Mary Worth, the internet's favorite suspect. Legend says she was either a witch executed in Salem or a child murderer in Chicago. However, historical digging reveals no such records. Aside from a famous comic strip, the name Mary Worth appears only in mundane birth and death notices. If there is a smoking gun, it might be found in the human eye rather than the supernatural. The psychiatric community is currently studying strange face illusions. When you gaze at your own reflection in a dimly lit room for an extended period, the brain begins to misinterpret visual data. Your face may appear to contort, the room may shift, and additional shadow figures can appear in the background. It isn't a ghost, it's your brain struggling to make sense of low light. Is Bloody Mary a vengeful spirit, a historical queen, or just a trick of the light? While science points to optical illusions, the history of people dying of fright suggests that what we see in the mirror, whether real or imagined, still holds a terrifying power over us. Now, moving on to the next lady of the hour is Ya Llorona. And once again, I have to know, Amy, do you remember hearing about Ya Llorona? When and where? And what was the story you heard? Like, what was the tale?
So, growing up in southern Arizona, this was huge story, and I heard about it from my cousins, and
again with the cousins.
Yeah, and
shouldn't have.
It made me not want to go to the Grand Canyon at all. So we, from that region, it was the river that ran through the Grand Canyon, and that was the river that she haunted. So we felt safe, from being taken by her, basically.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't stop them from still trying to pull you under every time we would go to the pool or go like in water of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we heard that she drowned her children to appease the male soldier that did not want children. And then he was horrified at what she did, and he didn't want anything to do with her, so she jumped off the cliff of the Grand Canyon and killed herself. And so she haunts the river, pulling children under the water to take a look and see if those are her children, and the children drown while she's taking a good long look. So and I was pretty young. This was younger, probably not 6 or 7 when I heard it. So it
traumatizing
was. Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's essentially the version that I heard too. I first heard it in South Texas. And I only want to highlight, Amy, you heard it in Arizona. I heard it in South Texas. I want to highlight this because this is a very regional urban legend, as you will come to find out. But I'll just get into it so everyone can find out. So Ya Llorona is primarily told in Latin countries and the American Southwest. Ya Llorona is known as the weeping woman, crying woman, or wailing woman. And the story generally goes, a woman scorned by a cheating husband drowns her children in a body of water and subsequently haunts the area for eternity, crying for her children. Whoever hears her cries are said to have a life of misfortune. Before diving into her origins, or the best I could dig up, I found that a version of this story, a woman haunting a body of water, crying or screaming along the way, pops up in many other areas and cultures, although not as well known. The White Lady in Houston, Crying Woman in Scotland, the Banshees of Ireland, the Lady of the Lake in Dallas, the Nixie or Lorelei of Germany, the Deer Woman of Native American folklore, the Green Lady of Wales, the White Lady of New York, the Pontianak of Malaysia and Indonesia, and about 24 others scattered across the globe. But as I said, none of them are as known as Ya Llorona. Ya Llorona has 2 birth stories, the first one occurring over 500 years ago. In this version, the Aztecs recorded a series of omens that predicted the fall of their empire. The sixth was a woman, Yayorona, who, adorned in white, wandered the streets at night, wailing and crying for her children as a warning of the end. She is regarded as a goddess or snake woman and holds much respect for her siren. The second possible explanation first appeared in a story titled El Pozo de la Llorona, or Well of the Weeping Woman, written by a Spanish Jesuit priest, Jose Maria Leon y Dominguez, in 1866. This story marked her as a tragic figure, left by someone she loved due to class. She wanders a riverbank crying. Something to note about this time period in Mexico is women who faced persecution for having a child out of wedlock, whether wanted or unwanted, were known to drown their children. Historians have been able to trace at least 394 cases of infanticide between 1842 and 1899. Between 1910 and 1920, approximately 10%, or 890,000 people, legally emigrated to America from Mexico to escape the violence of the Mexican Revolution, and Yayorona immigrated along. Now, this is when historians claim that her story was Christianized to include infanticide, which served two purposes. One, to warn children of the dangers of playing near waterways, and the second, to teach women not to date higher than their caste. If you were to trace her story back to her roots, you would find many poems written about her. They are entwined with heroic feats. She always served as a warning and protector of her people, until she came to the United States and murdered her children. This was a culmination of both the story having a new Judeo-Christian influence on it, and believe it or not, films. 1933, the film Yayorona was released, and she appeared as a crying ghost in white. But by the 1960s, films had evolved to her drowning her children. In any version, she does seem to represent a warning. Is she a culmination of all of the women who killed their children under duress in the 80s? Is she a protector of children, like the Aztecs believed? Or is she just another misunderstood woman in a long line? Now, keeping in a similar vein, have you heard? There was a school bus of kids back in the day. They got stuck on some railroad tracks and got hit, and everyone died. Now, if you park your car on those same tracks, the kids will push you off, saving you from a similar fate. There are over 100 towns or cities across the United States claiming this legend. The original, from what I gathered, is widely considered to be in San Antonio, Texas. The common thread is that all of the places that claim to have ghost kids are also associated with gravity hills. A gravity hill is a place where the layout of the surrounding land creates an optical illusion. It makes a slight downhill slope look like an uphill incline. If you stop your car at the bottom of the hill and put it in neutral, you will appear to roll backward or forward up the hill, seemingly defying the laws of gravity. You would think that a gravity hill would be story enough, but just like Yayorona, we need to add dead kids to it. But is there any truth? Yes and no. There have been many school bus railroad crashes that I could track down since their introduction in 1914. Berthold, North Dakota, December 17th, 1915. A train hits a school bus, killing 6 schoolboys and the driver. Walla Walla, Washington, November 20th, 1917. A train hits a school bus, killing 3 kids. Moose Lake, Minnesota, February 3rd, 1918. A train hits a school bus and kills 7 kids and injures 17. Red Bluff, California, November 30th, 1921. A train hits a school bus, killing 16 students, including the student driver. I don't understand, but I have questions, but I'll keep going. Van Wert, Ohio, January 10th, 1922. Freight train hits school bus, kills 6 kids. Vicksburg, Mississippi, October 17th, 1922. Train school bus collision leaves 5 kids dead, 12 injured. Atwater, Ohio, October 11th, 1923. 11 children killed after train hits their bus. And a handful more stories just like these, leading up to 1975. 29 in total, at least. So yes, there is some validity to some of these places having possible safety-minded ghost children. But 100? Probably not. And San Antonio, where this all began? No. Not from the records. There are accounts of people driving to railroad tracks to test out the ghost kids theory dating back to 1971. And to that day and after, San Antonio hadn't suffered this kind of tragedy. A bus crash in Utah on December 1st, 1938 may actually be the original, considering it hits most of the legend. I lost my spot. Okay. A school bus carrying 39 stalled on railroad tracks during a snowstorm. With zero visibility, a freight train struck the bus, killing 23 students and the driver. So if you want to find out if hobo kids, ghost kids exist, drive to any one of the 29 plus states across the United States. But if you want science to move your car around, check out a gravity hill near you. Okay. And while you are out cruising, you should be mindful of my next and final ghostly legend, the vanishing hitchhiker. This tale, of course, has a few variations. But generally, the story goes, a young man is driving when he sees a woman needing a ride. He picks her up, but before they arrive at her destination, which is sometimes a cemetery unbeknownst to the driver, she disappears, sometimes leaving behind an item. When the young man asks around, he finds out the young lady has been dead for years. This legend can be traced back to a story from 1602 by Johan Petri Klint, a Swedish priest. In the original manuscript, a priest and two farmers were on their way home from the Candlemas market in Västergötland. A maid asked to go along. At an inn, they got off to get a bite to eat, and the maid wanted something to drink, a jug of beer. The first time the innkeeper fetched beer, the jug was filled with malt. The second time was acorns, and finally, blood. They were then horrified. The maid explained that this year will yield much grain, plenty of fruit on the trees, but war and pestilence. Then she disappeared into thin air. Obviously, this predates automobiles, but it does have similar elements, and many historians refer to this as the original. Versions of the tale have popped up in England, Ethiopia, Korea, France, South Africa, Tsarist Russia, and in America among Chinese Americans, Mormons, and Ozark mountaineers. And it was found in a study in 1942 by Beardsley and Hankey that in the United States there were 4 separate versions of the story circulating at the time. And the difference depended on the region it was told in. But in every version, the hitchhiker was always female and the lift giver always male. But it was in 1981 when a book titled The Vanishing Hitchhiker by Jan Harold Brunvald was published that the story would expand to what we know of it today. Brunvald is coined as Mr. Urban Legend and has written over 10 books dedicated to the topic and states that urban legends have a persistent hold on the imagination because they have an element of suspense or humor. They are plausible and they have a moral. And speaking of moral tales, when we return from our ad, Amy will dive into our next area of urban legends. Hey listeners, if you reside in Northwest Indiana and are feeling indulgent, you should head over to chantillyluxurychocolates.com.
The chocolates are handcrafted, and each box is filled with expertly selected pieces for both their taste and their visual aesthetic.
Not only are they delicious, with flavors like black cherry cheesecake, salted caramel espresso, and butterscotch pecan crunch, the prices can't be beat, especially for artisan-level chocolates.
And they feature rotating seasonal flavors, the ability to customize boxes, consultation services for a variety of culinary and confection inquiries, and party favors to go along with your next big event.
So, Indiana, if life is like a box of chocolates, you may as well make it luxurious. Visit chantillyluxurychocolates.com or check them out on Instagram today.
Now back to the show. So, moral tales. The one that I wanted to kind of start off with, and you had kind of put it in parentheses when you were writing, we were doing that outline or whatever. Remind me the movie The Town That Dreaded Sundown,
Yes.
right? Wasn't that like basically trying to scare kids into not going, in their car and
Lover's
making out
Lane.
and this and that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I was trying to figure out like what was that movie that was, that reminded me of that.
It was probably Town That Dreaded Sundown, and Town That Dreaded Sundown was filmed as the original. It was filmed as almost a, like, this is really happening, like, like almost like a early documentary-esque, like the reporting that this actually happened and is going on type of movie. So people like thought they believed what they were watching in the film, that they were watching like a real life film of what was actually happening,
Yeah.
and not like just a film that was made by filmmakers and actors and writers and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But that is definitely a
But,
town that dreaded sundown. Yeah.
so there is the teenage couple, and they're in a parked car, and they're being terrorized by an escaped mental patient with a hook for a hand. So this one is, it typically features like a couple, and they're like, typically teenagers, and they're, making out in the car or whatever. So, and it kind of alludes to, the whole, don't go off by yourselves. I feel like it's kind of more like cautionary tale for like maybe kids, like hopefully not getting pregnant and
I
stuff
think
like
that's what
that.
it is. I do think that's
Yeah.
what it is. The whole like, yeah, because they're all like, why are they always making out in Lover's Lane or whatever? Like, I mean, they're never just like chilling at the park or like studying. You know what I mean? They're always like making out, which makes me think that it does have something to do with like abstinence and not getting pregnant young and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So another one that I wanted to kind of ask you about too was, and I didn't write notes about it, but whenever I was thinking about that, there was another one that there was like they're in the car and there's like broken down, and then they hear scratching on the top.
That's from Urban Legends.
That is?
It's a scene from Urban Legends. Yeah.
Okay.
It's where, remember the kid from Dawson's Creek, or the guy from Dawson's Creek that was in that movie? He takes like a girl out and they hear scratching on the top of the thing, and it's like their buddy or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a scene from Urban Legends. Yeah. Yeah. It was a good movie. I think Urban Legends is a really good movie.
Oh my
I
god.
thought it was fun. When it came out, I thought it was fun. I still think it's fun. I don't think it gets enough credit for being a really fun horror movie. Like, it really is. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel like in that same lane, we also really, really loved like Final Destination
Mhm.
in like similar realm, very like impactful. It's like, but the scenes that happened were just very grabbing and very shocking and just like.
They went with it with Urban Legends. Like the scene of like the one on the car, but then the one with the dog in the microwave. Like, you see that dog explode in that movie. That's not a real dog, obviously. That would be horrible. But it's pretty graphic for the time. Even the time it came out, I think it was pretty graphic. Yeah.
Absolutely. So for this section on moral tales, we're going to go somewhere that might feel a little bit more familiar. And that's a land of stories told to children, stories with lessons, stories where being bad has consequences. Except the consequences are significantly more gruesome than you might expect. Human beings have been using stories as moral enforcement tools for as long as there's been language. Before institutions, before organized religion in its current form, there were stories. These stories said very plainly, here's what happens when you break the rules of this community. The oldest surviving tradition in this genre is the fable, and the name that's most associated with the form is Aesop. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, Aesop was an enslaved man living in Greece in roughly the 6th century, around 620 BC. He is credited with collecting, retelling, and to some extent composing a body of short, allegorical stories now numbering around 725 in various compiled versions, in which animals behave as humans, and then they're punished or rewarded accordingly. But even Aesop didn't invent the fable. Modern scholars have identified Sumerian proverbs written approximately 1500 years before Christ that share the same structure: an animal, character, human situation, pointed moral. The tradition of using narrative to enforce social norms is, as best we can tell, as old as civilization itself. What makes Aesop's fables endure in their ruthless efficiency? They're short, they're direct, and the morals. once heard, are essentially impossible to forget. You know them, the boy who's cried wolf, then he lies about a wolf attacking his flock, the villagers stop believing him, and then when real wolf comes, no one answers his cries. The sheep are slaughtered. The moral, liars eventually find themselves without allies when truth matters most. There's the tortoise and the hare, and the speedy hare dismisses the plodding tortoise as no competition and naps mid-race. The tortoise wins, slow and steady. The goose that laid the golden egg, the fox and the grapes, and the fox can't reach a bunch of grapes and convinces himself that they're probably sour anyway. We still use the phrase sour grapes to describe exactly this behavior. The stories were designed to work on multiple levels simultaneously as entertainment, as mnemonic devices, as social instruction, and rhetorical tools. The philosopher Aristotle, in his Rhetoric, explicitly argues that fables can serve as evidence in an argument when concrete proof is unavailable. Even the ancient Greeks recognized that a good story functioned as persuasion. The fable tradition traveled through time transformed. In 12th century France, a poet named Marie de France adapted Aesop's fables into Old French, with morals updated to reflect the feudal values of her era. The 17th century French John de La Fontaine elevated the fable to high literary art, producing versions so beautiful and so biting that they remain part of the French national curriculum today. The German tradition gave up the Brothers Grimm, Jacob, from 1785 to 1863, and Wilhelm, 1786 to 1859, who between 1812 and 1857 collected and edited what became the most famous body of folklore tales in the Western world. And it's called Kinder und Hoshman. All right, yeah, anyway, so the children's and the household tales. I tried. It's really, really long. So, a note in the Grimm Brothers collection that often surprises people. These stories were not originally intended for children. They were originally a scholarly project, an attempt to document Germanic folk tradition. The early editions contained graphic violence, explicit sexuality, and deeply dark moral consequences. It was only after feedback that they began softening and moralizing the tales, adding lessons, removing the most explicitly adult content, and reframing the collection as suitable for children. Even so, the versions that emerged were still significantly more violent than what we tend to present to children today. Hansel and Gretel get a witch burned alive in an oven. Cinderella's sisters had their eyes pecked out by doves at the wedding. The original Little Mermaid doesn't get the prince. She dissolves into sea foam. These were stories where being bad, being vain, and being foolish had real, permanent, and often lethal consequences. So in my English class in college, we read the original Little Mermaid, and it was so good.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it was surprising.
He goes off on that about that all the time because, like, he knows the original version, of Little Mermaid. He's just like eye rolls. He's like, "Oh my god!" Like Ariel's the most obnoxious character ever.
I wish they would really make like the original story, like Little Mermaid. That would be so fucking good.
It would be. It
That would be badass.
It's like they were getting upset whenever Little Mermaid was gonna be like a black girl. It's like, you serious? You should go back and read the original because you would be upset about way more than that. I promise.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the book comprises a series of illustrated, rhyming, cautionary tales, each with a child protagonist and a very specific behavioral flaw. The consequences for those flaws are swift, total, and graphic. In The Dreadful Story of Harriet and the Matches, a little girl plays with matches against explicit warnings. She catches fire and burns to death. And then her cat cries over her ashes. Jesus. Yeah, so the story
Also, can you imagine a cat crying over any owner's anything?
The cat would have taken a shit in the ashes.
Exactly. That's not... Yeah. Come on, guys. Let's critically think our way through that story.
Yeah.
Put that baby to bed.
In the story of Little Suck-a-Thumb, a boy named Conrad cannot stop sucking his thumbs. His mother warns him that the great tall scissor man will come. Conrad does not listen. The scissor man arrives with the single action removes both of Conrad's thumbs. The illustration shows blood. The story of Augustus, who would not have any soup. A fat, healthy boy refuses to eat his soup. By the end of the tale, 5 days later, he is a corpse. The story of Johnny Head in Air, a boy who refuses to watch where he is going, falls into a river and nearly drowns. His school books float away downstream, and the title story, Shock-Headed Peter, is not published with violence at all. His sin is slovenliness. He has never cut his fingernails or combed his hair. His punishment is that he is publicly presented as a disgusting spectacle. He is unloved in a book full of scissors and fire. Somehow the most enduring horror is social rejection. So this book has sold 15 million copies. It went through over 100 editions in its first 30 years. Mark Twain translated it into English in 1891. It is considered one of the world's first true picture books, a precursor to the modern comic book format. It directly inspired Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands. The long fingernails of the shock-headed Peter, the scissor-wielding figure from the story of Little Suck-a-Thumb, is studied today by child psychologists, folklore scholars, and historians of children's literature. It also gave generations of German children nightmares, from which they recovered, probably in time for adulthood. Probably not, I don't know. What all of these traditions share, Aesop's Fables, the Brothers Grimm, Hoffman's Nightmares picture book, is honest acknowledgement that has largely disappeared from modern children's media, that actions have consequences, that the world is indifferent to your preferences, and that other people's behavior affects you whether you like it or not. Somewhere along the way, we decided that children needed to be protected from that lesson. The moral tale tradition would beg to differ. The weasel who doesn't store food for winter starves. The boy who doesn't look where he's going falls into a river. The girl that plays with fire burns. The story doesn't lie to you. It's not reassuring. That's the point. Now Roxanne's going to cover modern urban legends.
That was good. That was very interesting. Okay. All right. So urban legends tend to travel by word of mouth or storytelling. And for decades, the same handful seemed to rule the roost, even if they were ever evolving. But when the entirety of society shifts, new legends are born. And with the advent of the internet, legends could travel at the speed of sound for the first time. Not only did the internet amplify the stories, but when people from all corners of the world see similarities in stories separated by thousands of miles, it solidifies these tales as truth. And when the internet created its own legend, the public, already primed for this kind of thinking, accepted it. I'm referring to Slender Man. Slender Man, I lost my spot. Sorry, that was stupid. Okay. Slender Man was created on June 10th, 2009, on a thread in the Something Awful Internet Forum. It was posted as an entry to a Photoshop contest to create a paranormal image. Eric Knudsen created the character, but posted under a pseudonym, Victor Surge. If you don't know, Slender Man is depicted as a thin, unnaturally tall humanoid with a featureless white head and face, wearing a black suit with branching tendrils, and stories usually feature him stalking, abducting, or traumatizing people, particularly children. Although his lore has shifted over time, Eric Knudsen has cited the main influences being Zach Parsons' That Insidious Beast, Stephen King's The Mist, The Gentleman from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Men in Black, Shadow People, Mothman, DC Comics superhero The Question, The Mad Gasser of Mattoon, The Tall Man from the film Phantasm, the works of H.P. Lovecraft, William S. Burroughs, and the games Resident Evil and Silent Hill. As a creepypasta, which is an internet urban legend or horror story created and circulated online, the mythos grew quickly, and soon many internet denizens were posting their own experiences with Slender Man or photos capturing the specter. Of course, urban legends are all good and fun until they cross over into the living. And that is exactly what happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin on May 13th, 2014. when two 12-year-old girls held one of their classmates down and stabbed her 19 times. Motive? A sacrifice to Slender Man, so that he would not hurt their families and welcome them into his domain. They had read about it online. The girls survived the stabbing, and the two perpetrators were found guilty, served some of their time, but as of 2025 have been released on supervised custody. Another incident occurred in Port Richey, Florida, on September 4th, 2014, when a 14-year-old girl set her home on fire, with her mother and 9-year-old brother inside. During the investigation, it was found that the girl had been growing increasingly interested in Slender Man, visiting websites about him more frequently leading up to the crime. And lastly, in 2015, there was an epidemic of suicide attempts by young people aged 12 to 24 on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Slender Man was cited as an influence many of the times, although the Sioux tribe leader did make a statement that many Native American traditions include a suicide spirit that closely resembles Slender Man. Of course, the most hidden place on the internet hosts the scariest urban legends, the dark web. To give you all the most accurate depiction would have me diving into places that I have no interest checking out. So I apologize if this is not the most accurate for someone who goes onto the dark web and accesses any of these places. Also, gross. The dark web is a hidden, unindexed part of the internet requiring specialized anonymous browsers to access. It offers anonymity, therefore attracts whistleblowers and cybercriminals alike, and deals primarily in cryptocurrency. Many stories that come out of the dark web are unfortunately true. Drug trafficking, illegal data sales, illicit goods sales like firearms or fraudulent documents, child trafficking, and child pornography. However, two that are harder to pin down, and some of the more egregious, are murder-for-hire sites and red room sites. Murder-for-hire sites are just what they sound like. They are sites on the dark web that advertise hitmen for hire. Many times they claim to be backed by members of known gangs or cartels. When investigated, these turned out to be no more than extortion sites, and to date, no murder has been linked back to a murder-for-hire site. But they still exist. That is not to say that hitmen haven't been acquired online somehow, or that murders haven't been planned using the internet. It just hasn't ever been linked to a hitman dark website. And red rooms. These are invite-only sites that users pay, similar to a pay-per-view system, to watch someone torture or murder another person, often commanding what is happening while the scene is being live streamed. And I am happy to report these two are not real. Much like the hitman sites, they do exist, but are meant to extort large amounts of Bitcoin from unsuspecting users, or as phishing scams to install malware on users' devices. As before, though, this doesn't mean that murders haven't been facilitated online. In fact, there is a great documentary on Netflix titled Don't Fuck with Cats about a case where a man posted videos online killing animals and then finally another person. So yes, it does happen. And the dark web is full of sites with child pornography and forums where users can chat with each other about their depraved fantasies and these types of things. And although red rooms boast real snuff, there is little evidence aside from Luke Magnotta, who the Netflix documentary was about, and 3 other non-red room related incidents that these actually deliver. In fact, the FBI has made statements that an existence of a widespread snuff industry of some sort that commercializes or distributes this kind of video, either digitally or otherwise, is unfounded. They have allocated tons of resources over decades investigating these stories and haven't found them to be true. Probably one of the most invasive and widespread urban legends of the digital age, one that has affected everyone in my life, myself included, is the dreaded chain email. So you better forward this episode to 10 friends in the next 10 minutes, or you will have bad luck for the next 10 years. And if you ignore our next ad, someone you know will die at some point.
What's up, buddy? Why do you seem bummed?
Honestly, I've been really wanting a new shirt lately, or a coffee mug. Just a little something to treat myself.
And why can't you?
I've searched everywhere. The shirts online are low-quality polyester blends, and I hate supporting the man.
Okay, but what about the mugs? What's the issue with those?
Oh, the mugs. Even if I manage to find a mug that doesn't have a number one whoever or live, laugh, love on it, They cost a fortune.
You're right. Mug money is hard to come by in this economy, but you deserve to treat yourself, and I have news that may cheer you up.
Oh, really?
If you head over to thisjustin.com, they have shirts and mugs just like you want.
Are the shirts 100% cotton, not some cheap poly blend?
That's right, and they come in a wide range of sizes. And before you ask, the mugs don't have an inspirational quote.
That sounds too good to be true. It must cost a fortune, or be backed by some kind of corpo scum.
Nope, the prices are steal, and it's run by two best friends. No corpo scum anywhere near the product.
Well, Amy, it looks like I will be able to treat myself after all. This just in, and it's grim.com, right?
Yep, and while you're there, sign up for email. You'll get up-to-date information on episodes and the show, of course. Info on merch as well.
Thanks, dude. I'm heading there now, and if the prices are as low as you say, I'll treat you too.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay. And we are back. So, I have another question for Amy. Amy?
Yes.
What is the most outlandish urban legend you have ever heard of? I'm talking like you cannot believe anyone has ever fell for like that kind of legend.
Oh, man, I would say like the things growing in your tummy, you know?
Okay.
Like don't eat watermelon seeds.
Right, because the watermelon will grow in your stomach. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Like this, I mean, that as a kid believed fucking everything.
Same.
But when somebody said that, I'm like, yeah. Fuck no.
Obviously, I felt, yeah. Exactly.
Who has time to spit out the watermelon seeds? Like, are you kidding me? No,
right.
They're going in.
Yeah, they're going in. They're going in. They're all going in. And if I grow a watermelon, well, damn, I do. I don't know. Okay, so I think if I were to pick on myself a little bit, it would be the jackalope. Because, yes, I will admit that until I was well into my 20s, I wouldn't go as far as saying that I like actively thought about jackalopes. Sorry, excuse me. If someone would have asked me if they were real, I would have been like, yeah, they're real. Yeah, of course.
Oh, no, me and my brother would hunt jackalopes. Like
they're real.
We were on the hunt. Like,
yeah,
we
exactly.
were looking.
So fell for it. Okay.
Yeah.
The world is full of these old wives' tales, superstitions, and moral panics that went too far, that people claim are true no matter how far from reality these stories get. So before I get into the first two, I'm going to knock a couple out that through my research never happened or cannot happen. 1. Sitting too close to the television at any age does not cause permanent damage to the eye. It could be a sign of nearsightedness, but it does not cause damage. And 2, shaving does not cause hair to grow back thicker or darker in either men or women. After being shaved, hair comes out blunt and is not affected by light yet, which can give it a thicker and darker appearance. Okay. The first two that I want to get into are a pair of curses that only seem to afflict celebrities. The first of the pair is the 27 Club. This is the claim that a high number of notable musicians, actors, and artists have died at the age of 27, and as if predestined to join the club. To be fair, there have been a number of celebrities that have died at age 27. Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and a few dozen more. Of course, there's no evidence to support that celebrities have a higher chance of dying at age 27 than any other reasonable age. Excessive drug use and suicide are the most common contributors to these deaths. The second curse haunting Hollywood is that celebrities die in clusters of 3. Once again, there is no evidence to suggest that celebrities die in threes. Many times, you will find that celebrity deaths are announced in pairs or threes, even though they died weeks and in some cases months apart from each other. This is done by the media for a more dramatic effect, or to lump a lesser-known celebrity in with someone more headline-grabbing. Of course, there have been times when celebrities have died in threes. The plane that killed the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and Richie Valens comes to mind. So I can see how people can go from superstition when someone famous dies, or can go to superstition when someone famous dies. We have an example to back it up. Of course, most psychiatrists and other researchers on the subject claim it is either a form of confirmation bias, where the believer where the believer ignores key discrepancies to continue believing the legend. A form of grief, where someone can digest losing another by placing the blame on something like a curse. Psychiatrist Bernard Bateman, who studied this phenomenon, stated that the theory may continue due to psychological bias or apophenia, or seeing patterns as a way to make sense of randomness. So there you have it. Science's way of saying it's not true, but you're going to believe it anyway. And if that doesn't sum up most urban legends, I don't know what does. Okay, before moving on, I want to rapid fire knock out a few more, if that's okay with you. Regardless,
Yep.
I mean, I'm doing it anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, here it goes. Gum does not stay in your digestive system for 7 years. It passes as normal as anything else. Pop Rocks and soda can be ingested together without an explosion. Crossing your eyes will not make them stick that way. Cracking your knuckles does not cause arthritis, and vaginas do not have teeth. Yeah, I'm really glad I cleared that one up.
Yeah.
Speaking of body parts, there is a legend about a particular one, the kidney heist. This story dates back to the early 90s and typically involves a person traveling, usually abroad, and after checking into their hotel, they meet a stranger, are drugged, and hours later wake up in the bathtub of their room covered in ice, reaching their hand down to discover their kidney has been removed. There are many variations of this story. The victim is not always in their own room. They can be seduced and brought to another place. Sometimes it's another organ, not the kidney, that is taken. And some versions have a note left for the victim to call 911 when they wake up. Most researchers see this urban legend as a warning to travelers of the dangers of other countries, especially impoverished ones, where people are desperate enough to steal and sell an organ for money. Folklorist Jan Harold Brunvald, the same Brunvald that I had mentioned earlier with his research of the vanishing hitchhiker, traced the organ theft urban legend to an episode of a 1991 crime drama television series. The episode was titled Sonata for Solo Organ. Amy, would you like to take a stab at what crime show I'm referring to?
Is it Law and Order?
That's right, Amy. It's Law and Order.
Yep.
I knew it. I know. Right when I saw that, I got super excited. I was like, she's gonna love this. Now, the idea of an organ removal in some hotel under those circumstances without the person bleeding out is medically impossible, according to experts. But it is also a logistical impossibility as well. Organs can only live outside of their hosts under a very specific set of guidelines and not for extended periods of time. So the likelihood that there is an underground thriving market for organ trafficking isn't likely, as the legend doesn't support successful removal or transfer of a human organ. Now, that's not to say that organ trafficking isn't a reality. There is a thriving, successful organ market. It just doesn't have anything to do with traveling businessmen or ice baths. Transplant tourism is the term for when someone needing an organ travels to another country and purchases the transplant procedure and organ from someone selling their own. It is the most common form of organ trafficking. It is illegal in every country except Iran. And regardless of if there is consent and exchange for money, it is considered exploitation. Now, I could get deep into organ harvesting, but we should save it for a future episode. But don't worry, organ stealing strangers shouldn't be an issue in your travels. And before I leave it to Amy, I have a few more legends I want to debunk. Okay? All right. Cows usually sleep lying down. For your safety, don't try pushing one over. Okay, just don't. You actually can find alligators in sewers, but only in Florida and only after a storm surge. Richard Gere got trolled by Sylvester Stallone for years, but he never had a gerbil in his ass.
Dang.
And a spider cannot and will not ever lay eggs in your face or crawl into your mouth, for that matter. A parasite, yeah, but never a spider. So the whole we swallow 8 spiders, whatever, total bullshit. They're like, why would a spider go into a known predator's mouth? Like, think about it. And if you really do think about it, it's like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Finally, everyone will have to give up hope that they are going to unlock a superpower Because we humans use not 10%, not 25%, but every part of our brain is serving a function 100% of the time. Now, that fully functioning brain of Amy's is going to take it from here.
So for the organ harvesting,
Mm-hmm.
I actually read a really, really good book recently that
Yeah.
had that on there.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was actually by Reese Witherspoon
Okay.
and Harlan Coben.
I know who
So
Harlan Coben is.
I know, it's so good.
Yeah.
So it's called Gone Before Goodbye.
Okay.
And it has like that kind of a theme or whatever. If anybody listening or if you are interested in something, and it is like, I really just went into it blind. So I was like, just gonna check it out. But it got really, really dark and creepy.
Oh,
and
I bet.
really good.
Is it
Yeah.
is it fiction or nonfiction?
It's nonfiction.
Oh, really?
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, sorry, it's
It's
fiction.
fiction?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
know what
fine.
that is. Trust me. Anyways, it is fiction, but it's, it
I-
kind of goes off
I
that
can imagine.
theme.
I've read not his sports writer detective series or whatever. I never read any of those, but I read a lot of his like standalone books a long time ago, and a few of them were really like
No, the guy
page-turning,
does
riveting,
twists like nobody else. Like,
like real twisty. Yeah.
He
Mhm.
does it really, really good. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to bring that up.
that's a good.
So, because urban legends are not an American phenomenon, they are a human one. And the stories the rest of the world tells in the dark are just as wild, just as terrifying, and in many cases far stranger than anything we've grown up with. Let's begin in Japan, where when it comes to volume, variety, and sheer creative horror, Japanese urban legend tradition may be unmatched on the planet. Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. You're walking home alone at night, maybe from school, maybe from a late shift. A woman approaches you. She's tall, striking, well-dressed, wearing a surgical mask over her face. This is not unusual in Japan. Mask wearing is common for hygiene and courtesy. She stops in front of you. Am I beautiful? She asks. This is the moment everything depends on. If you say no, she kills you on the spot with a large pair of scissors she's carrying. If you say yes, she removes the mask, and you see that the corners of her mouth have been split, ear to ear, creating a grotesque, permanent grin that stretches across her entire face. And now, she asks, am I beautiful now? If you say no this time, she kills you. If you say yes, she uses the scissors to cut your face to match hers. The Kuchisake Onna is one of Japan's most well-documented urban legends, and the origins are layered and folklore researcher. I know.
I need a third out. I need a third option. Like, what? Like, yes, no. What about maybe so? Like, I hate that you're doomed no matter what. Sorry, that freaked me out.
Yeah, I know. I was researching this like middle of the night, and I'm just like, so the legend is having roots in Japan's Edo period, running from the 17th to 19th centuries. The classic backstory from that era: she was the beautiful wife of a samurai who discovering her infidelity, mutilated her face as punishment. She died and returned for revenge. But in the legend's modern explosion happened in 1979. Beginning in January of that year, newspapers across Japan, including the Gifu Nichi Shimbun and the Weekly Magazine, beginning printing reports of children seeing a masked woman with a slit mouth. The rumor spread so rapidly, so completely, that according to documented accounts, parent-teacher association groups began escorting children home. Police reports were filed, schools issued warnings, a nationwide panic about a woman with scissors unfolded and the Kuchisake Onna is at her heart a story about a specific kind of violence directed at women for kind of going past social expectations. That became a monster and turned its rage outward. She is simultaneously a victim and a predator, which is exactly why she endures. The next one, still in Japan, different horror. The story begins with a young woman, sometimes a schoolgirl, who falls onto train tracks, and an oncoming train cuts her right in half. She dies in agony. either from the accident or from the neglect of the station workers. Her spirit survives, and because she no longer has legs, she moves by dragging herself along on her hands and elbows, producing a rapid, scraping, rhythmic sound that gives her the name Tick, 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 Tick.
I knew that's the one you were talking. I was like, ticka ticka. Yeah.
She haunts train stations and urban areas at night. She moves extremely fast despite having no legs. Witnesses report she can pace with a moving car. She carries a scythe. And if she catches you, she does the exact same thing to you what was done to her. One version of this legend centers on a specific identity, Kashima Reiko, whose name written in its kanji characters translates to mask, death, and demon. According to this version, she haunts bathrooms and asks a single question: where are my legs? If you cannot give the correct answer, the Meishin Expressway, where some versions say her legs were thrown, she tears yours off. And in the darkest variant of the legend, if you hear this story, she will appear to you within 1 month. The only way to stop her is to spread the story. Teke Teke is, on one level, a visceral nightmare about violence of urban industrialization, person destroyed by a machine in an instant, turned into instrument of revenge. On another level, she is the Japanese tradition of the onryo, the vengeful spirit, usually female, who returns from death because of a wrong that was done to her in life. This tradition is ancient, and it produced not only Teke Teke, but iconic figures of modern Japanese horror. The woman from The Ring, the girl from The Grudge, the onryo is Japan's indigenous ghost archetype, and Teke Teke is one of the most viscerally modern expressions. Now from Japan to West Africa, specifically to boarding school dormitories of Nigeria, where a ghost in red high heels has been terrifying students for generations. Madame Koi Koi. Her name comes from the sound of her heels make, and I'm probably saying it incorrectly. It's Koi, Koi Koi. So it's mimicking the clicking of the stiletto heels going down an empty hallway at 2 a.m. when the lights are out and the dorms should be silent. Madame Koi Koi, in the most common version of the legend, was a teacher. She was beautiful, impeccably dressed, and known for wearing bright red heels. She was also cruel and abusive towards the students, known for slapping them, and she was feared rather than respected. In one version, she strikes a young girl in the face and injures her ear. The girl turns out to be the daughter of a wealthy school donor, and Madame Koi Koi is fired on the spot. She drives home in a rage and is killed in a car accident. With her dying breath, she curses the school and vows revenge. From the night forward, students in the dormitory begin hearing the clicking of her heels after lights are out. In another version, students murder her in revenge for her cruelty. She still comes back. Madame Koi Koi is described as attacking students in dormitories, restrooms, and hallways, slapping them, opening doors, singing, whistling. Her presence is always announced by those footsteps. One account describes an entire dormitory of students disappearing after her death, except for a single boy who claimed to hear her heels every night. He was later found dead, his body battered. The legend is deeply embedded in Nigerian boarding school culture that has spread across Ghana, where she is known as Madam Moke or Madam High Heels, in Tanzania, where she's Miss Konkoko, and South Africa, where the version is called Pinky Pinky. In 2023, Netflix released the Origin Madam Koi Koi two-part horror series loosely based on the legend, introducing the story to international audiences. Madame Koi Koi is not simply a ghost story. She's a story about institutional authority, about the violence of power, and about what happens when that's abused and have no recourse except to wait for the abuser to die. She's also a deeply resonant story for students in residential schools, children living away from home, and in any institutional settings where adult authority is absolute. Physical discipline has historically been common. She is, in that sense, the institutional boogeyman, the teacher who never really leaves. Finally, let's cross to Southeast Asia, specifically to Thailand, where one of the most visually striking and culturally complex supernatural entities in the world has been haunting communities for centuries. The Krassu, the floating head. Picture a woman, ordinary by day, perhaps a neighbor you know, a widow in the village, a woman who walks to the market every morning. But when the sun goes down, something happens. Her head detaches from her body and, accompanied by an eerie pulsating glow, orange or green, sometimes described as a will-o'-the-wisp, she floats through the night, her internal organs trailing below her neck. The heart, the stomach, the length of the intestines dangling like macabre jewelry. She's hungry, and what she craves is blood from livestock, from pregnant women, from the vulnerable. She is drawn to the smell of birth and flesh. She hides her body in a safe place before dawn and must return to it before sunrise or face death or face a death of agonizing pain. This is the Prasu, Thai nocturnal female spirit that has haunted Southeast Asian folklore for centuries. Historians believe the legend may have originated in the Korean Khmer Empire and spread across what is now Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Indonesia, where nearly identical versions exist under different names. The Philippines has the Managal, Vietnam has the Malay. The geographic footprint of this legend is enormous, spanning one of the most diverse cultural regions of the earth. Yet, essential image is always the same: a woman's floating head with organs trailing below, hunting in the dark. The most famous Thai origin myth describes Khmer Princess, who was sentenced to death by burning after being discovered with a forbidden lover. Before her execution, she had a spell cast on her to protect her body from the flames. The spell arrived too late, her body had already been destroyed, and only her head and viscera survived the fire. She continues to live as the Krassu, cursed to roam and feed forever. Anthropologists have noted that the Krassu and the regional variants encode specific cultural anxieties about women who operate outside sanctioned social roles, a woman who travels alone at night, a midwife whose medical practices are poorly understood, a widow who does not share resources with the community. The figure functions a social regulation, cautionary image that polices the boundaries of acceptable female behavior by imagining a normal woman and making her into a monster. The Krassu is not merely historical. Rural Thai communities still report sightings. In 2023, a group of teenagers in Thailand filmed what they described as the Krassu sighting near a river. The footage spread widely on TikTok. Villages in rural areas have organized night patrols following reported encounters. Unexplained livestock deaths are still regularly attributed to the Krassu activity by rural communities. The legend has generated a significant body of Thai horror cinema stretching from 1973 to the present, including the 2019 film Inhuman Kiss and its 2023 sequel. The Krassu is, in many ways, the perfect urban legend. She's visually specific and unforgettable. She exploits universal bodily fears, the violation of physical integrity, the terror of something almost human, but wrong in fundamental way. And she carries centuries of cultural weight about gender, power, punishment, and darkness beyond the edge of village. What connects a slit-mouthed woman in Japan, a ghost in red heels in Nigeria, and a floating head in Thailand? Every one of these legends is a vessel. They carry something that a community couldn't say directly about authority, about violence, about what happens to people who break the rules or challenge power. They give shapeless fears a name, a form, sound, the click of heels, the scraping of elbows on pavement, soft glow of something floating towards you across the dark water of a rice paddy. The stories change, the fears that made them don't. And wherever human beings live, they will keep finding new ways to tell them.
Woo! Are we done?
We're done.
We are done, y'all. Oh my goodness. This was so much fun. I knew this was going to be a lengthy episode, but I was here for it. Like, I was so excited, you know? I'm sure like if anybody is still listening, they're probably like, oh, was it really? But I mean, we had to kick off our new season with a biggie, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? I mean,
go big or go home.
I tried to cut it down. So,
Same.
I mean, and I did. I actually did cut it down. So,
same. Same. I was like, man, this could have been like we could have just done one season of just urban legends, probably. And that's what I definitely want to say. If anybody wants us to do a second part, because this ain't all of them, guys. We did not listen.
Especially if you know any, like,
Yeah, if you
small
know
town
any more, yeah.
oh my
Because
God, we want to know.
we do. We really want to know. And there's so many out there, and we tried to, I think, pick like the most well-known or like the most popular ones that you've probably heard of, at least a couple of them.
Yeah.
There's so many. So like, yeah, if you want to hear more urban legends, like let us know. We'll do it Urban Legends Part 2, and we'll dig out some more. And if you could send us some, that would be cool too. But we don't want to keep anybody any longer than we need to. And we should let them know what our next episode is. It's very exciting because
Yes.
our next episode is the very first episode that we have ever done that it was actually suggested to us. It wasn't
Yes.
one that we like originally came up with. So we're very excited. And do you want to tell them what it is, or are you going to try and make me pronounce it?
So I will attempt to announce it, and it's the Sarachina excavations in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And it's otherly known as the Bulgarian Area 51.
Yep.
So
So
I
it
am
is.
excited about that one for
So
sure.
am I. So that'll be our next episode. And other than that, we'll see you guys next Thursday for our live.
Yep.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay,
Adios.
guys. Bye.
Bye.